The galvanizing furnace temperatures are not hot enough to create metallic fumes, but certain other operations, like welding and cutting with a torch, can. Metallic fumes are made up of tiny solid particles, which are the condensed molecules of vaporized metal. If your work area lacks proper ventilation, the effects on your body can be disastrous. Cadmium is a metal which is highly toxic. Cadmium is a known cancer-causing agent, and it targets the kidneys and respiratory system. The most common way to absorb cadmium into your body is to inhale cadmium particulate or fumes. Similarly, copper and zinc produce toxic metal fumes. These metals can cause metal fume fever, which results in severe flu-like symptoms. Like cadmium, copper and zinc target the kidneys and respiratory system. Nickel can be absorbed through the skin or lungs and can damage both the central nervous system and respiratory system. Follow some common sense precautions when working with metals. If you are unfamiliar with the metal, find out about it. Read the MSDS and read any labels. Observe all written warnings and remember to avoid eating, drinking, or smoking around metals. When your shift is finished, change your clothes. If you wear work clothes home, metal contaminants travel home with you. Be sure your work area is well ventilated and wear appropriate personal protective equipment. Remember that any metal spills must be contained. Notify your supervisor or a safety officer if a large spill occurs. And keep in mind that magnesium in particular reacts with water. Never use water to extinguish a fire that involves magnesium. Use sand instead. A hazardous material is a substance which, when transported in commerce, is capable of posing an unreasonable risk to health, property, and the environment. Similarly, hazardous waste refers to any material subject to the Uniform Hazardous Waste Manifest requirements set forth by the Environmental Protection Agency. Solid waste is only hazardous if it is ignitable, corrosive, reactive, toxic, a listed hazardous waste, a mixture, or otherwise not excluded from the EPA's requirements. All North American galvanizing facilities are large quantity generators of hazardous waste. For example, our processes produce large quantities of spent hydrochloric acid. When dealing with hazardous materials, there are some definitions you'll need to know. A buddy system is a way of organizing employees into work groups so that each employee is observed by at least one other employee in the work group. The buddy system provides rapid assistance to employees in the event of an emergency. Cleanup operations refer to any effort aimed at removing, containing, incinerating, neutralizing, stabilizing, or clearing away hazardous substances. The goal of any cleanup operation is to make the site safer for people and the environment. Decontamination refers to the removal of hazardous substances from employees and equipment. The goal of decontamination is to avoid health problems caused by the substances. Emergency response refers to an effort made by employees outside the affected area, or an effort by outside responders. The aim of the effort is to respond to an uncontrolled release of a hazardous substance. A hazardous materials response team, also called a hazmat team, is an organized group of employees designated to help handle and control actual or potential leaks or spills of hazardous substances. A hazardous waste site is any facility or location at which hazardous waste operations take place. Permissible exposure limits, or PELs, refer to the amount of hazardous material to which you can be exposed without incurring long-term or chronic health effects or damaging your overall health. Health hazards can be chemicals, mixtures of chemicals, or pathogens which can cause chronic health effects. When we refer to something as IDLH, we mean that the substance is immediately dangerous to life and health. This might be a toxic or corrosive substance that would pose an immediate threat to life and could cause irreversible or delayed adverse health effects. An oxygen deficiency exists in any environment in which the percentage of oxygen by volume is less than 19.5%. Below that point, atmosphere supplying respiratory protection must be worn. A qualified person is someone with specific training, knowledge, and experience in the area for which that individual has responsibility and authority. And a site safety and health supervisor is an individual located on a hazardous waste site who is responsible for implementing the site safety and health plan. This person also verifies compliance with all regulatory safety and health requirements. In your job at North American Galvanizing, you may never be called upon to help deal with hazardous materials or to help respond to an emergency involving them. But if you are, knowing these definitions will facilitate communication. In any emergency response, seconds count, and knowing what to do or who to contact may save critical time. In many ways, personal protective equipment is your best friend on the job. People who ignore or dismiss PPE sometimes pay a heavy price for their disregard, a price that can include losing their sight, their hearing, or their life. Chemicals can pass through protective clothing, although permeation often cannot be seen without a microscope. The concept of breakthrough time refers to the amount of time required for a chemical to break through a specific material. And penetration involves a large volume flow of any chemical through protective clothing or protective material. Degradation refers to the changing of physical properties of personal protective equipment due to the introduction of other chemicals. When selecting protective clothing and equipment, keep in mind three things. First, select the clothing based on your evaluation of the job itself. Second, know the types of exposure you're likely to face. And third, know the effects of contact with chemicals. There are 4 levels of protection: Level A, Level B, Level C, and Level D. Level A is used only when the greatest level of skin, respiratory, and eye protection is required. Level A protection might include a supplied air respirator and a totally encapsulating protective suit. Level B offers the same high level of protection, but it is used when a lesser level of skin protection is needed. Level B protection might include a respirator and hooded chemical-resistant clothing like overalls and a long-sleeved jacket. Level C protection is used when dealing with an airborne substance and requires the use of an air-purifying respirator. And Level D protection is used for nuisance contamination only. A work uniform, for example, might offer the minimal protection that Level D requires. Boots or shoes should be chemical resistant with a steel toe. Fortunately, your job at North American Galvanizing will probably not require Level A protection. Level A is used only 1 to 2% of the time. Level B is a little more common. It's used in 15 to 20% of work environments. Most likely, you'll need to use some combination of levels C and D. In workplaces around the country, these 2 levels account for 75 to 90% of all usage of personal protective equipment. When using personal protective equipment, you'll want to consider 5 factors. First, the age of the equipment you're using. Second, to what degree it will resist chemicals. Third, ease of cleaning. Fourth, wearing or using comfort. And fifth, ease with which you can communicate while wearing it. To accurately determine which personal protective equipment to use, you'll need to know the actual properties of the hazard from which you want to protect yourself. If you don't have this information, ask a supervisor. Nowhere is knowledge of the hazard more important than in selection of protective gloves. There are 4 typical types of gloves. They're made of butyl, latex or vinyl, neoprene or PVA. Butyl and natural rubber gloves protect your hands from alcohols and diluted acids. Neoprene gloves protect against bases, peroxides, fuels, and oils, in addition to certain hydrocarbons. Protective boots may be made of butyl, natural rubber, or neoprene. Again, you must know something about the hazard you'll face in order to select the correct type of boot. As you prepare to wear any personal protective equipment, a brief inspection of the equipment itself is in order. Look for tears or open seams. Inspect the equipment for signs of swelling or stiffness, and look for cracks or cracking on the surface. This presentation is a broad overview of the hazard communication safety information that will be of vital importance to you as you begin work with North American Galvanizing. You'll receive additional training related to hazardous chemicals and site and process-specific protection in a special presentation, which makes up the next segment of this training program. Finally, chemical-specific safety training meetings are designed to address hazards posed by certain chemicals with which you will be working. At North American Galvanizing, hazard communication training is an ongoing effort. This presentation was created and developed by WorkSafe for North American Galvanizing. All content is copyright 2007 by WorkSafe. Reproduction in any form is forbidden without the express written permission of Safety Source, LLC.